Welcome back to the CryptoLabs YouTube channel. I'm here with Colin, who's a more popular YouTuber than I am as of late. Y'all's love his videos, so we'll keep doing them. Little educational content here. This has been coming up quite a bit as people start navigating away from maybe blockchains they're familiar with. Sometimes they're losing crypto in the process of bridging. They're sending it to the wrong chain, or they don't really fully understand why they have to bridge. Like, I've got ETH here, but I want to use ETH on Optimism. Why can't I just do it? And sometimes they're sending, it's become a mess. We don't want you losing money. And so this is really, really important to understand. And Colin does a brilliant job of a lot of the education and explaining this stuff. So before you do anything, make sure you watch this video to the end. Let's talk about bridging different blockchains and some of the mistakes people are making here.
Lucas, this is by far the biggest question, the biggest pain point that we see just in the UIG and in the DeFi space at large. And I think to add another brick to our education in this DeFi space, understanding that all of the dozen blockchains that we talk about on a daily basis, Ethereum, Mainnet, Polygon, Sui, Avalanche, Cosmos, or Osmosis, all of these are their own separate entities, their own separate blockchains. And so a metaphor and analogy that I like to use is that it's like their own separate mode of transportation. And sometimes I like to describe them as their own separate highways. But some people think, oh, well, I can just take one highway and get onto another one. So sometimes I even like to take it a next step of saying, like, Ethereum is like the ocean, and Avalanche itself is a highway, and Polygon is like a bike path. And that if you have a package on the ocean in a boat, that's not going to translate well onto that bike path on Polygon. They are their own separate entity. So even though the coding language might be similar, even though it's a layer 2 solution, you have to think of them as their own separate entities. And so this is, again, like the biggest pain point that I see is, well, I have assets over here on the ocean, but I'm trying to get into a liquidity pool here on a bike path. How do I get the package from my boat onto the bike on the bike path? And so this is where bridging comes in. And bridging it's not a very fun experience because of the risk. And that's exactly what we're doing. Think of it as like you're taking that package and you're transforming that boat into a bike. It is a very kind of a sort of a complex procedure done in DeFi. And so, not to go down this rabbit hole, but I'm very excited about these interoperability-based projects that are starting to bring these blockchains together. That's a big word. Basically, it's just it allows blockchains to communicate better with each other. And so instead of having it as their own major highways, their own major, completely separate modes of transportation, what I see DeFi becoming in the future is this one conjoined community where blockchains are able to communicate and where we are able to send assets from one chain to another seamlessly and with less risk. And so
just to give some context, please. If anyone is watching, Colin said something there that I don't want missed is this is where kind of the risk is, or this is where people get a little bit, they zap their assets from the BNB chain to base, let's say, and maybe they're using some cross chain, maybe they're using Rubik, whatever they're using. It can create some anxiety. To be clear, I've never lost money on a bridge unless it was user error on my end. But I have had some moments where I'm like 2-3 hours later, I'm like, I have no idea where my assets are. They've just disappeared. Right. That said, when you're using things like Rubik Exchange, I have had assets kind of disappear, and their support within 5 minutes helped me find it. They said, hey, everything is good. We put a support ticket out to them, and they kind of sped the process up. So I've never really lost it. That said, I've made mistakes where I sent some asset cross-chain and it was on that blockchain, but I sent the wrong version of it and I couldn't find it. And then you had to use the bridge to bridge it back. And it can get really messy. A lot of people, they lose money on it. They can't find it. Oftentimes it's somewhere. It's just finding it become tricky. So I will add one thing is we'll talk about bridging. What you can also do and what our members do now is they'll just zap onto their centralized exchange and then select the chain that they want to send it to if it allows it. So like on ETH, right? They have some ETH on whatever. They can send it to their centralized exchange and then send that ETH back to a different blockchain. But you're limited to what your centralized exchange can do, and you're fairly limited. So there are going to be times where you have to use a bridge to bridge onto, let's say, Sui or on Base. And Yeah, it's important to understand the difference, just to give some context to that, because you kind of mentioned it's risky. So
yeah, no, it is. It's important. User error is one thing for sure, but there's also an element too of just you are connecting with a third party service, right? And so, doing due diligence and understanding that you're using, like I said, a third party to do this type of transaction, that's important. One that I like to use, Lucas, and the reason why I like to use it is because there is no smart contract approval to your wallet. It's changed now, and I've been using it for 2 years. And the reason why I like it, and I'm not financial advice or anything, I'm just describing the reason why I like it is because you don't have to connect your wallet and approve any contracts. So understand that like when you're going to swap one asset for another inside a decentralized exchange, you have to approve a contract. You have to basically say, yes, Uniswap contract, I approve your contract, the ability to access the funds in my wallet so you can get into my wallet and swap those funds back and forth. So that approval of that contract, you're basically, like I just said, you're giving that contract permission to access your funds. Same thing happens when you use a lot of these third-party bridges, is that you're giving them full access to that asset, right? Or not full access, but you're getting them access to the asset that you want, right? That you're trying to change. And that's still a risk. That's smart contract, because if there is a malicious code or 6 months down the road it gets hacked and you haven't revoked that permission, that could be risky. So that's what I'm talking about when it comes to risk. It's third-party services, third-party smart contracts. Anyways, that's why I like Change Now, because you don't have to approve a contract. So that's another option. And another option is too, Lucas, what you said is going back to the centralized exchange and then going to the destination chain that you want to go to. So really smart thing. Anything else, Lucas?
No, so good. But what Colin's talking about here is, let's just say I wanted to send some whatever. Let's say I had some USDC over here and I want to send it over to Base on USDC. And I want to send 100 over. As you can see, I use Rubik Exchange, but you are approving the smart contract. So it's very important to know when you're using these services that you trust them, that you revoke permissions, that you do your due diligence. And these have been hacked and exploited before. And bridges apparently are one of the easier ones for hackers to find holes in the smart contract. So I've never had a problem with Rubik, and their support has been awesome. But as you can see, I said, hey, I want to move $100 off BNB onto the base chain in stable, or maybe I want it in ETH or whatever that is. It'll help me find the best route that's the most efficient, that costs the least, and then I can zap it over, and it will zap it over. Actually, it'll show you what it's doing too. I'd have to actually approve it, but it'll show you the exact order of things of where is it, what is it doing? So if I actually went to ETH, it would actually show me, if it allows me to, where it swaps USDC. Like it's actually recommending Change Now is one of the higher ones, which is the one Colin uses. And it would actually show you what it's doing typically. For this one, it would swap my USDC to ETH via 1inch, and then it would bridge that ETH onto Base via XY. So it's just finding, but you're taking a risk because you're interacting with all of this. And so you just have to be aware of that. Make sure when you're doing it, you're trusting the platforms that you're using.
Yes. I have one more thing too, Lucas, because I have kind of a rule that I like to talk with my members out in the UIG, and they love this rule, is that whenever you're bridging over to obviously a new blockchain. Let's stop there for a sec. If you're bridging to a new blockchain, like if you're like, okay, well, there's a lot of volume on Base right now. I want to get into Base. If you're bridging ETH from Arbitrum to Base, please make sure that you're bridging it into the asset, into that coin where you have to pay for gas fees for. And so give an example. If you've never operated on the Base chain before and you want to get into a liquidity pool or a lending protocol or whatever you want to do over there, you want to operate on the Base chain, well, you're going to need ETH on the Base chain to pay for gas fees. And so if you bridge 100 USDC from Arbitrum and you bridge it into USDC on Base, that's great. It'll be successful for you, but you won't be able to operate on the Base chain. And so a rule that I like to say in the UIG is that whenever you're bridging over to a new blockchain, bridge it into the native coin that you're going to use for paid for gas fees. So that may sound obvious, but for a lot of people who are newer to bridging, it's just like, no, well, I'm trying to get USDC on there because I'll swap my USDC, which is true. but you still need that native coin for gas fees. So instead of swapping it into USDC, swap it into ETH on base chain, then go to a decentralized exchange, swap that ETH for whatever asset that you're looking to get into, Arrow, USDC, whatever it's going to be, whatever you're trying to do. But hopefully that makes sense. Lucas, did I articulate that?
Absolutely. I'm actually going to do a part 2. Please let me know in the comments, where I'm actually going to go through a few bridges, and I'm going to actually bridge some assets over onto different blockchains and kind of show you guys the process. So if you do want to see that, do let me know in the comments, and I'll link out to it once it's released. I really hope this was helpful in some way. Colin, thanks for always explaining things in such a beautiful way. You do such a good job of it.
Yeah, slow down and test amounts. That's always what I'll say, especially when you're doing it for the first time on a new DEX, on a new bridge, on a new centralized exchange. Slow down, double check everything. Like, it's funny, whenever I'm doing live and I'll read it 3 or 4 times, and kind of on purpose, but not really on purpose, because that's how I do everything. I just read through it 2 or 3 times, do a test amount, confirm it works properly. Then you can repeat the same process and go through the full amount. So yeah, hopefully this was helpful to you on YouTube.
So helpful. So helpful. If it was, let us know in the comments. Let's thank Colin for taking the time. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and what I'll do is I'll leave 4 videos in the corner of the screen that'll go deeper in on different concepts that are related to this video. We talk about a lot on this YouTube channel, all the way from, we wanted to build a community that could talk about crypto, DeFi, money, God, universe, universal laws, all in one sentence, and be okay with it. So you'll find a wider range of over almost 500 videos on this YouTube channel. So spend a few hours, study up, take some notes, forge and better your craft, because I do think this is going to be around for quite a while, and we're early. So really study this stuff. Take it seriously. With that said, we'll see you in the next video.